That's how I feel right now. TFA fam, what is going on? I've been trying to go live for about an hour now. I buy a $1,500 PC to upgrade things, and that decides to go shit the bed. And then I have to hook up the old PC or laptop, and it takes forever. But we made it. We're here. We're the night before the NFL draft. Finally, maybe we should say omen or something. I don't know. But anyways, I'm Kevin Steele. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyRat13. Joined by Christian Welsh. You can find him on Twitter at Evil Empire FF. He's been dropping some fire videos. He just dropped one this week on Elijah Moore. What's going on?
Oh, not much. I'm just glad that I'm still awake from waiting on you in here for the past hour. So ready to talk some NFL draft.
I hear you. It's a pain. It's been a pain in my ass. So anyways, let's just jump right into it. As you can tell, the title of the video is 2021 NFL Draft Risers and Fallers. We're just going to go through position by position. We're just going to talk about some guys that, where we were on them, early process, January, February to where we are on them now. We have a little more information. We have the testing that was done, some of the pro day stuff, which, let's be honest, at least for me, it's been pretty underwhelming for a lot of these players. We thought these players were going to be taller, faster, stronger, and they all pretty much underwhelmed outside of a few. So let's just jump right. Let's start with the quarterbacks, right? We got the kind of the big five here. There's been so much speculation these past couple of weeks of where they're going to go, pretty much outside of Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, I guess, the top two guys. But once you get past that, the next three quarterbacks could go in any number of ways. First, why don't you tell me where you have these top three, in terms of ranking, and then where do you think they're going to end up?
For me, I've got Trevor 1, I've got Fields 2, I've got Lance 3, I've got Wilson 4, and then I've got Jones 5. Throughout this whole process, it seems like the top two have been pretty much set in stone, with Trevor going to Jacksonville and Wilson going to the Jets. So the draft pretty much starts at that number 3 spot with San Fran. And I'm just not believing the Mac Jones stuff. I just have it hard to believe that you're going to take him over Justin Fields or Trey Lance. Here we are the day before the draft, and it seems like it's not Fields. There's a chance it's Lance, but I just don't know how you could take Mac Jones over Trey Lance. So for me, I'm thinking the Niners are going to go Lance just because, I have a hard time believing that you would take a guy like Jones over Lance, but that's the way I have it right now. Lawrence, Wilson, Lance for the top three.
Yeah, for me, I think in terms of tiers, it's kind of Trevor Lawrence, and then past that, it's in tier 2, it's those three quarterbacks: Wilson, Fields, and Lance, and then Mac Jones and Atiel Berlome. I know there's a lot of steam. There's a lot of people on fantasy Twitter that like Mac Jones and get upset when you talk bad about him. I think he's an okay quarterback. I just think he's being overhyped. I think his ceiling is probably somewhere in the range of Kirk Cousins. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a multi-year starter in this league, has had some good seasons. There's nothing wrong with that. He's just does not have the ceiling for me as the other top three. Now, the Fields thing, I don't get. I don't understand why it seems like that he is going to fall. And it looks like that's what's going to happen. We have the San Francisco 49ers, that they're kind of the wild card. There's been basically the rumors of Mac Jones. Trey Lance has really started to pick up steam there as of late. And then, it doesn't seem like Justin Fields. Now they could be pulling the wool over our eyes. Maybe it's Justin Fields this entire time. We'll look back on it and realize that was kind of silly. But I just don't know what they have to gain by hiding it. What do the 49ers have to gain to hide it and play this game? Because we know Zach Wilson's going at 2. We know Trevor Lawrence is going 1. So there's no point. I don't think you have any leverage here of doing this.
Yeah, I don't know. We could go conspiracy theory with it. We know the new Jet staff has ties to the Niner staff, and they're picking there at 2 and 3. I wouldn't be completely surprised if, it was actually Justin Fields that's going second this entire time, and all of us have been fooled. But I can't explain how Fields just keeps slipping. But, it's one of those things to where all of us as a community have kind of fought back on it. But here we are again the day before the draft, and it seems like a certainty that Justin Fields is, the 4th, maybe 5th quarterback going off the board. And for all of us that have, watched the film and evaluated these prospects throughout the process, that's just, it's hard to believe.
Yeah, I don't understand it at all. I just doesn't make any sense to me. He, to me, probably should be the number 3 quarterback off the board. I get Trey Lance. I like Trey Lance a lot. I think Trey Lance has a really high ceiling as well. He kind of is the total package. He's not as athletic as Justin Fields, but he's certainly somebody that can, probably somebody I feel like that could give you a consistent 400 or 500 rushing yards, in a season. And so, like, Trey Lance makes sense for the 49ers because I feel like that Trey Lance can sit for a year, learn Kyle Shanahan's offense. But we're starting to get rumors today that the Patriots are interested in trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. So whoever that guy may be stepping in year one, which may be a little bit more of a tell that it's not going to be Trey Lance, because I don't think you would want Trey Lance to start year one with the limited reps that he got at in college. And so I don't know if you'd want to put him in that situation to start year one. I think that's kind of a mistake. It would make sense to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, but we've seen some of the reports today about them possibly trading him. So maybe that's more of a tell that it is Mac Jones, which I would just laugh and laugh and laugh if they took Mac Jones over Justin Fields and Trey Lance.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine if they like Mac Jones, but why the trade up? Why pay what you did to get up to 3? It just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all. So, Ashton, I don't think I'm not saying that people are saying that they like Mac Jones over Justin Fields. I'm saying that the Twitter community has hyping up Mac Jones more than what I think they should. To me, Mac Jones should be like a late first, early second round pick, in my opinion. I think of where he should be going. He shouldn't be going in these guys. But Walito in the chat, as always, and before Belichick trades up with Carolina and draft Justin Fields, calling it, well, not if you don't believe these Jimmy G rumors to the Patriots that they're working on a deal right now to send Jimmy Garoppolo to the Patriots, which makes sense. They obviously know him. So other than that, I don't think we really have,
I don't want it to seem like we don't like Mac Jones either. Like Kevin said, this is a Kirk Cousins kind of guy. And we like Kirk Cousins, but this is such a toolsy class, whether it's the quarterbacks having wheels or just the big arms on these guys. It's hard to believe that you're going to take the least athletic guy of the 5 at 3 and pay the premium that you did to get up there. So it's really the price dependent thing on Jones. It's not that I don't like Jones. I think he's solid. This is a really, extremely solid quarterback class where we could have 5 successful starters out of it. But, the one that's by far the least athletic and toolsy of the 5, may go 3rd, which is just, doesn't make sense to those of us that have been, dove into this process the whole time. So
where do you think, really quickly before we move on to the other positions that are more a little more interesting, where do you think how far do you think Justin Fields could fall? Because I've said before that I think the Falcons and your team would be absolutely ridiculous to pass up on Lance or Fields. I get it. I don't think Matt Ryan is cooked. I've heard a lot of people say that Matt Ryan is done. I don't think that he is. I just think that Matt Ryan's 36 years old. They owe him a lot of money. If you have this opportunity right in front of you right now and take somebody like Justin Fields, who could be a franchise quarterback for the next 15 years, I don't know if you pass it up. Taking Kyle Pitts doesn't help the Falcons right now, in my opinion, right? And so I just can't see that happening. I just doesn't make sense to me, I should say, that they're going to pass up on Justin Fields or Trey Lance for Kyle Pitts. I love Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts is the real deal. I think he is a lock to be the next great tight end, but I just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Matt Ryan. I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm not ready for the Matt Ryan era to be over yet, but he is 36. It's getting close to that time. Like I said, this is an extremely talented QB class, and we're sitting there with we can get Lance or Fields with where we're picking, one of the two. And for me, it's hard to get excited about Kyle Pitts when I know we'd be leaving one of those guys on the board. Now, for me, in a perfect world, we trade back like the Dolphins did and, accumulate a couple extra firsts, a second, and just accumulate more assets, because I think kind of where you were going with that, even if we add Kyle Pitts, this is a terrible defensive football team, the Falcons. We are more than one piece away from competing. So why not move back and collect assets and just continue to add to the franchise? We got a brand new GM, a brand new coach, let's build this thing the right way. So for me, that's why I'm torn with the pick. I mean, obviously we're going to add a nice piece to our franchise, but I would rather fully commit to the rebuild instead of, okay, let's try to compete this year because we have Matt Ryan, even though we may draft a quarterback at 4, I want us to commit one direction. I don't want to try to do both and then we're just middle of the road.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Atlanta's in a perfect position here to kind of rebuild. We've heard the rumors about Julio Jones being moved. They would save $15 million against the cap by moving him. I think, in my opinion, if Trey Lance is sitting there and if he's not the pick and it's Mac Jones, I wouldn't hate that either. You let him sit for a year behind Matt Ryan. Next year, some of that big time guaranteed money is done, and it's easier, more palatable to trade Matt Ryan after this year. You gain more assets next year trading him. I think you could still probably get a second round pick easily for Matt Ryan, who will be 37. That's still young enough in this age. He hasn't shown a ton of decline. Like, he threw for 4,500 yards last year and 26 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So I think you can see a team like Chicago who definitely needs a quarterback, who's out here with the Red Rocket. And some of these other teams that are going to need a quarterback that could end up doing that. So it'll be interesting to see where these quarterbacks land. That's the one thing that I am the most excited to hear about, is where these guys go. But let's move over to the running back position and get off these quarterbacks. So the running backs, as we all know, it's the big 3, right? And I know it's very hard whenever you're kind of going through this process of evaluating, as you start falling in love with some of these guys, but then you kind of have to zoom out. And that's kind of what I've done the last month. After we went through all these guys and really dug into them, is zoomed out a little bit and realize that this running back class is pretty booty. All right. It's not good. It's the top 3 guys, and then it's just a bunch of dudes afterwards. Right. Like, I think there's some talent there. There's some guys that could end up having roles, but this isn't last year's prospect class in terms of the running back. It's the big 3, and it's the other guys after that. In terms of the big 3, though, where do you come in on them?
For me, it's really landing spot dependent on them. I mean, running back, I'm more landing spot dependent than I am other positions because the shelf life is just shorter, and the points are coming from volume rather than skill. I mean, a carry isn't earned like a reception is earned. It's game plan. So for me, that has a lot to do with it. But I would go Harris, Etienne, Williams. I know Williams is your guy, and I have all 3 of them close. Like I say, it's not a massive gap between them. I'm not surprised that Etienne, I guess we could put Etienne in the category of risers, since we're talking risers and fallers now. He's, maybe the first back taken in the NFL draft. And I know within our community, he's kind of fallen behind lately. And I honestly think it was just a little bit of prospect fatigue because once he announced he was coming back to school and was going to be a part of this class rather than last year's class, he immediately was the top guy in this class. So I think that's just an example of prospect fatigue. We got excited about the improvements that Harris showed this year and the emergence of Javonte Williams. And, now that the draft's tomorrow, we're like, okay, Etienne's still really good. We just, got excited about these other guys. So I've got them all really close. It's looking like Etienne and Harris will both end up with first-round draft capital, which is a surprise to me. I didn't think any backs would go in the first a couple months ago. But it's looking like Javonte Williams is comfortable right there in the top of the second. So, I think, like you said, the top 3 are solid, but, the depth after that is where this class gets scary at running back in a bad way.
Yeah, I don't really understand. No running back should ever be taken in the first. And if they are, they'd better be like elite level prospects. And I don't like, I am the biggest Javonte Williams truther there is. Like, the second I laid eyes on that guy, I fell in love. But with that being said, I still don't think he's worth a first round pick. You really shouldn't take any running back in the first round of the NFL. It just doesn't make any sense. But we're getting a lot of hype about the Steelers wanting to take Najee in the first round. I've seen a lot of mocks with Travis Etienne, and I really wouldn't be surprised if he is the first running back off the board. He's kind of, I do agree, he's kind of like DeAndre Swift last year, right? Because heading into last year, DeAndre Swift, for most people, or 2 years ago, when they were heading into the season, it was all about DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift was the best running back in the class. And then all of a sudden, we had some other guys rise up and some things changed a little bit, but everybody just kind of like was, okay, DeAndre Swift's there. And it's kind of the same thing with Travis Etienne. Like, his skill set at the next level plays very well. And while I don't think that he definitely has some holes in his game, some issues, I still think that he has just as high of ceiling as these other 2 guys do. And I think people have just unfairly knocked them down. Javonte is Javonte. I think that he also provides that 3-down skill set The dude just absolutely just a joy to watch, the things that he's able to do in the backfield. He didn't test as well, but I felt like that was kind of double counting a little bit against him because who thought Javonte Williams was going to run fast? Like I wasn't expecting him to go out here and run a 4.4. I figured he would come in that 4.5, low 4.5 range, which is where he came in. So it's absolutely fine with me. But so for me, it's Javonte 1 still, and then I think it's Travis Etienne and Najee Harris, but they're all extremely close, just like you said. Moving past those guys, though, who are the guys after that you are the most excited about, that you think that could gain some early draft capital and have a role at the next level?
I'm not in love with any of them. I mean, the next two, Gainwell and Carter, I think can at least carve out receiving roles and play in the league for a while. Gainwell's size is concerning, but he's got tremendous hands and the production profile is there. Michael Carter, some people think he's the better running back on North Carolina. The guy's film is good. He's very versatile. So I think those two guys are going to play in the league for a while. But again, on the topic of risers and fallers, a guy that I've not really been in on that's been just rising up the charts lately, Trey Sermon seems to be a teacher's pet of everybody that's, in cahoots with the draft. And it seems like he's going to get better capital than I, originally anticipated. And, he was a guy I wasn't really excited about because he lost his job at Oklahoma, but I mean, really turned it on for Ohio State in the playoff run there. And, it seems like he's got a chance to maybe be the fourth running back off the board. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, he's an interesting, because when I first started looking into this class, he was somebody that I just wasn't all that high on and I wasn't that excited about. But kind of going back, kind of re-looking at some of these guys, I get it. I still don't. People keep calling like he's a 3-down back or three down back. I don't see that. Like, I didn't see somebody that's a great pass catcher. I think he's a functional pass catcher, but I just don't think that he's somebody that really stands out to me that is going to be somebody that you're going to ask to catch 40 or 50 balls. Like, I guess he could do it depending on the offense that he's in, but he feels like a guy that's going to be typecast into an early down back if he gets starting capital, or at the very least, he's going to be just a between the tackles grinder that never really gets much pass catching upside. And so to me, that limits him a little bit. But he does seem like somebody that could go in the late second, early third round. And if he does, depending on landing spot, like, he could end up being a guy that we kind of have to like a little bit more, because as you mentioned, and this is absolute truth, all we care about is volume with running backs, right? And so if they're going to get that, they're going to get the early volume, because right now we have the teams that need a running back or could take a running back that would make the most sense are the Steelers, obviously. The Jets definitely are in that mix. Not really not Carolina. The Cardinals anymore, but the Dolphins still could. I think they could be in Atlanta, definitely, with Mike Davis as really the only guy they have. I think those are kind of the big sexy landing spots that possibly one of these guys could go to. But there's some other options out there that players could go to. I think Denver is a dark horse spot for a running back that could get some opportunities as well. So
a lot of people have been
like. No, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of people have been releasing their final mocks the past 24 hours or so, and I've seen ETN to the Jets on half of them. So there's clearly a link there with ETN to the Jets there in the early 20s. Then you'll have Harris to the Steelers. Everyone's seen that link. The Bills have been linked to ETN if he's still hanging around. But I'm optimistic there with the Falcons with our early second round pick that maybe we can snag Javonte right there.
Pure sex. I would be so excited if that happened.
Yeah. I think that would help bump him up some rookie rankings as well. I think people like that Atlantic spot for him quite a bit.
Yeah, Walito saying another super chat. Appreciate it, Walito. I love me some Khalil Herbert. So does PFF. I think they have him as a top 5 running back in this class. So they're much higher on him than I think a lot of the other people are. But you also have guys like Elijah Mitchell, who tested really well and kind of reminded me a little bit of Antonio Gibson in terms of, that athleticism that, one, I wasn't expecting him to test that well athletically anyway. But do you think that somebody like that could be somebody that we look at and we look back at and maybe we were all a little bit too low on him and the NFL ends up liking him a little bit more than what we do?
Like I said, for me, running back is more of an opportunity position than it is a skill position. And, this class is really only good with the top 3. Maybe that next 3 after that is okay. But there's going to be guys past that end up on teams where they're going to have opportunity. You know, I don't think anyone had James Robinson in their top 10, top 15 backs last year, but he ended up in a place where there was opportunity and he sees that opportunity. So, of course, one of these guys like Herbert or Jamar Jefferson or, you know, one of these guys in that, you know, 10 range is going to do something. But, you know, for me, it's hard to really, you know, plant your flag on one of them because, you know, like I said, with carries are game planned. It's not like you're getting open and getting a reception. It's just a matter of what team are they going to land on and are they going to get enough carries to put up the work, you know? So it's more of a crapshoot, if you ask me, with those late round running backs than it truly is evaluation of talent.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. So, well, let's since, you know, we know running back isn't all that exciting. You get past those three guys. Let's go to the wide receiver position, where I think that you're going to, you know, for most people, it is the deepest. I've heard some people talk about this class is as good as last year's receiving class. It's not. I don't think it's far off. Like, the depth is certainly there, but it's not as strong, I feel like, as what last year's was. I think for a lot of people, there are a lot of guys that are in a lot of different places for people, where you kind of move them up and down, as you know, or as you obviously know, but maybe they don't. But me and you are very high on Terrace Marshall. We've been riding the Terrace Marshall train for some time. Obviously, Jamar Chase sounds like he's going to be the first wide receiver off the board. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Waddle ends up being the first wide receiver off the board. I think it comes down to what Cincinnati wants to do at 5. Because it sounds like Miami has some interest in Jalen Waddle, which, you know, with that connection with Tua. But, like, so for you, does it come in at Jamar, Devontae, Jalen Waddle? Is that where you have them ranked, or what would be your top 5?
My top 5 at wide receiver is Jamar Chase at 1, Devontae Smith at 2, Rashad Bateman at 3, Jalen Waddle at 4, Terrace Marshall at 5, and then Elijah Moore at 6, and then I got a pretty good gap after that.
Yes, you're speaking right to me with Elijah Moore. We'll get to that. But for me, my top 5 has changed quite well, I should say quite a bit, but it's changed. It is Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Terrace Marshall, Rashad Bateman, and then Elijah Moore. So people are going to say, Kevin, you're crazy.
Where'd you have Waddle?
I would have him at 6.
6, okay.
But I like Jalen Waddle, but I have some concerns with Jalen Waddle. Like, I know everybody's called him Tyreek Hill, which I've said this before. I'll probably say it again. Every time I hear it, I'm going to say it. Every year we try to come up with a Tyreek Hill. The last 3 years, this guy's the next Tyreek Hill. This guy's the next. It's not, okay? Tyreek Hill is such a unicorn in his own right. He was such an outlier at his size, to be as dominant as he is and things that he's able to do, that he's not. And to compare Jalen Waddle to that, like, I still think Jalen Waddle has a great floor because of his return abilities. He's always going to have that in his bag. So he's going to stay in the NFL because of that. Could he be Henry Ruggs? Certainly possible. There's a lot of red flags with him, with not having really a great dominator, a really late breakout age. His dynamic ability is certainly there, and I cannot deny that. And I think that's there. But I do think his ceiling and his floor is as far away as anybody's, because I think he has a pretty high ceiling, but I also think he has a pretty low floor as well. If he goes to a team where it doesn't work out, the reason I hated Henry Ruggs last year was for the same reason. If he went to the wrong landing spot, I thought he was going to be dead. And once he went to the Raiders, I absolutely hated it, because Derek Carr cannot support a deep threat wide receiver consistently. He's not going to throw it deep. He wants to throw it underneath, which is what we saw, right? And then just whatever, out of just craziness, because John Gruden's an idiot, you know, they decided to use Nelson Aguilar as their deep threat instead of Henry Ruggs, the guy they drafted in the first round, when they could have had CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy, which would have been such a better fit for that offense. But that's how I feel about Jalen Waddle. And so I'm just not as high. I like Jalen Waddle, but I just think that he is a little bit more riskier than these other guys.
Yeah, I can see that. I think he's a lot better player than Ruggs, but, you know, there's a lot of similar risk there. But for me, like you know how much I love Marshall. I would have Marshall third as well. But have you seen the news recently? This morning, the Athletic came out and said that Baltimore, even who I think all of us think Marshall's going to at the back of the round, is now concerned with some of the injury stuff that's popping up on Marshall's reporting here with his leg and his foot. So it seems like Marshall's going to slip out of the first now due to some injury concerns. So when the Chiefs made that trade with the Ravens and they had 2 picks at the back of the round, I'm like, man, that's a slam dunk. There's Marshall for sure on one of them. But it seems like there's some concern that Marshall's going to slip out of the first now due to some medical concerns. But outside of that, Marshall's a unicorn in this class. This is such a small class at wide receiver. Most of these guys are slot guys between 5'9", 6 foot at the tallest. Marshall's a good 6'3", 210, 205, I think is what he came in at his pro day. He is by far the best prototype wide receiver in this class as far as what we would normally draw up. And Baltimore needs one of those big guys. So for me, I thought that was a slam dunk. Seeing that report from the Athletic this morning that Baltimore is potentially out on him, that's a little scary to me as far as, him slipping into the second and maybe falling because of some concerns there.
Yeah, we'll have to see on him. Like I just think that his ability, what he was able to do with, at LSU in that offense, when Joe Burrow was there, when Justin Jefferson was there, Jamar Chase was there, and he still produced 13 touchdowns that season. He does have some injury risk and some things that have happened along the way, but I don't know. Like, obviously we're not privy to that information. We don't have the guy's medicals and everything else to be able to look at it. I just think though, as just a pure wide receiver, I think his ceiling is just as high as most of these guys in this class. I absolutely love him. If he falls to second, let that man fall to the second for Kansas City to scoop his ass right up. All right. We'll rehabilitate him. We'll bring him back. We'll get him on board.
I would love it.
I would love it. Goodness. I would. We'll be live too, by the way, everybody that's watching right now. So we'll be live for the next 2 days, Thursday, day 1 and day 2. So we'll be on the board. If the Chiefs do it, I may just lose it right there. Just
as far as the NFL goes, though, it definitely seems like they're not down on Waddle. It seems like he's going off the board second or third. So that's where it gets interesting for me with the NFL draft, is we know the 2 Alabama guys and Chase are coming off the board. Bateman seemed like a slam dunk to be the next guy until he came in 2 inches shorter and 20 pounds lighter. It now seems like there's a chance that Bateman can slip a little bit. And let's go ahead and talk about him. The riser here, Elijah Moore. I would not be surprised if Elijah Moore goes to the Titans at 22. You have A.J. Brown lobbying for it. It's his old teammate from Ole Miss. I mean, this dude has flown up the board. People were mocking Rondale Moore to teams like this, in the first round not too long ago. And Elijah is what we want Rondale to be, So at this point, I think the NFL is on board as well. All of us want that Packers landing spot for Elijah Moore, I think, but I don't think he's going to be there. I think the Titans are going to bypass Bateman and take Elijah Moore at 22. That's my bold hot take today. Elijah Moore's going at 22 to the Titans. I think it's 22, but
I mean, I don't hate that at all. Like, I think that he is somebody that, like, if you just look at his production, I mean, again, he produces well. Whatever DK Metcalf and AJ Brown were there at Ole Miss. I think he dropped 700 yards, I believe. He
didn't quite have 700, but he had 50 targets as a freshman with DK and AJ both there. So,
That's right.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, and the season he just had that he's coming off of is absolutely ridiculous this past year. But I absolutely love him as a player. I think he's somebody. I think he can play. I know he played primarily in the slot. I think a lot of people have typecast him in the slot, but I think he could play on the outside as well, depending on the offense. But I would love the Green Bay landing spot if he could go there. Like, that would be the ultimate spot for him to go to. We've seen Randall Cobb and some of the other slot wide receivers. It's kind of Devontae Adams, and that's kind of it there in Green Bay. So they
don't have a slot receiver on the roster. Those other 3 guys, none of them play the slot. At least more than 50% of the time. There's not a wide receiver on that roster that plays most of their snaps in the slot. So it's a desperate need for them.
No, for sure. But I also think Tennessee makes some sense as well, right? I mean,
absolutely.
They brought in Josh Reynolds, but Josh Reynolds isn't really a slot guy. AJ Brown is there. So you stick Elijah Moore in that role. I think he would fit perfectly there and could excel year 1. So yeah, I don't hate that landing spot for him either. What is your thoughts on the Kadarius Toney? Like, he seems like the guy for most of us on the fantasy Twitter and hear that we just hate Kadarius Toney, or not as high on Kadarius Toney as what the NFL seems to be. Right, the NFL seems to be loving this guy like he could possibly go in the first round, which just seems ridiculous to me for somebody that never did anything in his entire career until his senior season at Florida. But which is just a huge red flag for me, because to me with Kadarius Toney, it's not like Florida, like he was playing at Alabama or LSU with these loaded rooms where he just couldn't get on the field because he was just playing with great NFL talent. Like, this hasn't been the case. Like, it's not like Florida's out here just producing these top flight wide receivers every year. Like, so for him not to get any opportunity until now you could make some case that, some of the quarterbacks they had prior to him, Kyle Trask obviously had a big year as well this year. And so maybe that could be some of it. And it is hard to deny some of the stuff he's able to do in space. Like, he is certainly a guy that you want to try to get the ball in his hands, but he is a terrible route runner. Not that that's the everything in the NFL, because it's really not. It's sometimes overhyped, but still, he is very bad. He is not a good route runner. He's a guy, but I just think that I think he has a really, really, really low floor. And I just don't see the hype that everybody else has for him.
He's McCole Hardman. I mean, he has no analytical profile. He's just fast. I mean, Devontae Smith is a unicorn, and me giving him a pass and not being an early declare at wide receiver. This is a 4-year player that has, literally, I think, less than 500 yards total prior to this past season. I mean, his analytical profile is just horrendous. I mean, outside of speed, I mean, I don't see what he brings to the table. And again, I'm more of an analytical guy than a film guy. If his analytical profile hits, I mean, you want to talk about a unicorn. I mean, the odds of Toney hitting are just low based on historical data. So I would take your shot on somebody else. If you absolutely love him, cool. But I think he's McCole Hardman at best. I'm also a Tennessee fan, so I may be biased. I hate the Florida Gators, but I don't think he's any good.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. As we know, McCole Hardman hasn't really worked out. People have been wanting to make him a thing for the last couple of years. He's not. It sounds like the Chiefs, if they don't take a early wide receiver, that it could be a Byron Pringle show this year. There's been some talk around here that Byron Pringle could be much more involved in this year. I don't believe it. I think they're going to take somebody. They have those 2 seconds. But past those guys, we haven't really talked about, I feel like Tylan Wallace certainly has kind of fallen down a little bit for me. I still see some of the traits there, but he did not come in nearly as athletic that I thought he was going to be. I think he ran like a 4.5, just didn't do a whole lot for me. I thought he was going to be much more in that 4.3, 4.4 range. Did not do that. I know there's still a lot of people that like him, but for me, I just was not nearly as excited. I still think he could have a chance to go in the second, possibly the third round. I'm just not as excited about him as I once was. Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't seem to have a whole lot of buzz going on around him either. Again, probably somebody that's a late second, early third round pick. But somebody that I will say that's been a big time riser has been Nico Collins. He is a guy that sounds like he could go a little bit higher than what we expected. Now, he played at Michigan. John Harbaugh is a terrible coach. I don't know how he's still at Michigan. That program has been a dumpster fire pretty much the entire time he's been there. He had no quarterback, so it's hard to really blame him for that. But athletically, it's all there. But the stats and everything else, breakout age, all that stuff, isn't as much there as we would like to see either.
Yeah, Nico Collins, CJ just did a pretty good video on him, breaking him down and how he's rising a little bit. But, he's not one of my guys. For me, if I'm in that range of a guy that's really coming up, it's going to be Amari Rodgers, who I did a profile on. But for me, he's one of those guys that's just going to play in the league for a long time because he does everything right. He got it running back in his pro day to show how versatile he can be. And unlike, the Rondell Moores that are, 5'7", Amari Rodgers is a good, big guy. He put up over 20 reps on the bench at his pro day, so this is a guy I think is going to play in the league and be a Swiss Army knife of a weapon that you can get in that range. But what Collins has going for him is, he's a bigger receiver in a class where there's not many big receivers, so those guys are worth taking a shot on just because, everybody in this class is 5'9". So there's plenty of those to go around.
Is there anybody else in this wide receiver class that, now we've gotten testing and everything else that has kind of somebody you've kind of moved up a little bit further than maybe in the earlier process, or moved down?
Wallace is one of those that I've moved down a little bit, similar to your reasons. Being on the analytical end, he's a breakout age king. I mean, his freshman year was unbelievable. I expected him to be a little bit faster, and then, just the history of Big 12 receivers is horrendous, so that's something that I'm cautioning on just a little bit, even though you scout the player, not the uniform, but sometimes the data is overwhelming and you're just like, well, maybe that has something to look at. But, Wallace has slipped down a little bit for me. Tony is, somebody that I have moved up a little bit, even though I don't like him. I had him around wide receiver 15 coming into the process, but I've got him up around 10, 11 now because he's going to have draft capital. I won't have him on any teams, but he's definitely moved up my board a little bit. Rondale Moore is somebody that slipped a little bit. I, at one time, had him at wide receiver 5. He's fallen down a little bit for me. Marshall and Elijah Moore were guys I was always high on that I've just, validated with their pro days and just digging more into them that I love. But, wide receiver more so than any position I've probably kept, pretty, much the same as it's been the entire time. No extreme movers. But let me say this on wide receiver. I was listening to, some podcast earlier this week, and I heard Mel Kiper talking on one, and everybody knows Mel Kiper's watched all these drafts for a long time. And he was talking about Anthony Schwartz, a player that I don't like. And he was mentioning that he thinks he's going in the 2nd round and that Rondale Moore is going in the 3rd round. And I don't know how you can watch those two guys play football and tell me that Anthony Schwartz is better. But, clearly Mel Kiper thinks that Anthony Schwartz is a round better than Rondale Moore, which is, shocking to me, so maybe I'm just terrible at evaluating wide receivers.
So with Rondale Moore, because he does check a lot of boxes, right? Like, I mean, he had that extremely early breakout age. It was one of the best we've ever seen in terms of breakout age. The dude is an absolute athlete, just a beast, a freak of nature at his size to be able to do. However, the hard part is the dude was used on, I don't have it up, or I'll have to find it real quick with all my advanced notes that I have on him. I'll have him for the next couple of days. But like, I think it was like something crazy, like 40% of his receptions were screens, which is just absolutely insane, right? But I think if he goes to the right spot and he goes to the right offense that knows how to use him, has to get him in space to get the ball in his hands, I think of all the players in this draft, or all the players that you ever wanted to try to talk about, like Tyreek Hill, it would be him. Because of his crazy athleticism and all the stuff that he's able to do. Is he going to be Tyreek Hill? Probably not, but he doesn't have to be. But I think if you get him in the right spot and you get him in the right system and the right team and the right quarterback around him and you use him correctly, I think that he can be an absolute weapon. And
he needs a great wide receiver coach because, as you pointed out, like I said, I've got all the stuff on him because I did a profile on him. But like you said, 40% of the catches in his career were screens. His ADOT was 5.8. I mean, this guy's literally like, catching a pitch basically for his receptions, so there's no route tree at all, and for somebody his size to be able to get the ball consistently enough in the NFL to provide what we want as far as the fantasy performance. I mean, he's going to have to get schemed like 8 catches, 10 catches a game. And I just don't see it happening because right now he doesn't have the route tree to, go out on his own and actually get open and create. He's not a creator. As amazing as he is with the ball in hands after the catch, he doesn't create on his own. Most of his production is schemed production. So, like you said, if he doesn't get in a spot that's really going to prioritize him, he's going to get lost. But it's hard to drop him past, I think, 7, 8, in my opinion, in your wide receiver rankings because of the athletic profile. It's just insane. I mean, this dude is an absolute freak. So I don't think he's that great of a wide receiver. I really think he's going to struggle to transition to the NFL, but that is an athlete that we don't see very often. And I think that you can only drop him so far because of that. He's a lot better than Anthony Schwartz is where I was going with that. Anthony Schwartz is like Marquise Goodwin. He runs straight and that's it.
Yeah. And so like with him, like where I guess the parallels of Tyreek Hill come in and for him are so it's easy to look at Tyreek Hill now and know that he's a top 3 or 4 wide receiver in all of football. But when he first came in the league, he was very much a gadget guy. The Chiefs used him in the backfield a lot. So he was getting backfield touches. Like he was used as a kick returner, punt returner. Like they were kind of using him all over the field. And I feel like that's the role he needs to, that if he can get to a team and they don't just typecast him straight into a wide receiver and they kind of be aggressive with him and kind of move him all around and just do whatever they can to get the ball in his hands, much like Tyreek Hill did. Tyreek Hill had to learn how to be a nuanced route runner. He was not that. He was not a polished route runner or anything like that. But the dude absolutely worked his fucking ass off to get to where he's at right now. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I think he has that. Like, he could get there, but it's just going to take the right system and the right scheme for him to be able to do so. So I agree with kind of some of the stuff that you're saying about him as well, because I do think that floor is definitely there. But I think that if initially teams are probably going to use him very much like a Tyreek Hill or a Percy Harvin out whenever he was coming out, very similar in types of that. So
I could see his first couple years being very similar to, say, Curtis Samuel's first couple years.
Yeah, where he's just kind of used all over the place. And see, if he can develop, and maybe Curtis Samuel is actually a really good comp as well of kind of a career trajectory that he could be on. So I don't hate that. I did want to mention my guy that I have been hyping up, and I'm starting to hear a little bit more groundswell for, people get a little bit more excited about, and that's Simi Fehoko. I love this dude. He's probably going to be a 5th round pick. I would love it if he went a little bit sooner than that. But he is one of the more athletic wide receivers in this entire class. He is 6'4", 220 pounds. I believe he ran like a 4.4 40 at his pro day. And so he is raw. He did a 2-year mission before he went to Stanford I can't remember what it is now. Anyways, that he did that before. He is a little bit older. He just turned 23. So he's not as old as a lot of these other guys who go on these missions, because a lot of these guys come back and they're 24, 25 years old. So they hit the NFL. He still just turned 23. So that is a positive for him. But like, I think he certainly is raw. He's going to take a little bit of time, but with that athleticism, if he goes, again, another guy with the right landing spot, I think could be somebody maybe in Dynasty that you are taking. Because listen, when you get to the 3rd, 4th round of your rookie drafts in Dynasty, you're just shooting for upside anyways, right? Most of those guys aren't going to work out for you. They're just a waste of pick. So for me, if I'm going to take a shot, I'm going to take a shot on somebody like that, who I feel like that has all the athletic traits to be a dynamic wide receiver. He had 26% of the targets this past year at Stanford. So I like him quite a bit. And he's that kind of like diamond in the rough for me. And I'm really excited to see where he goes. I'm sure my heart will be broken. He'll probably go undrafted or something crazy. And I was just too excited for him. But I do think that he has a shot to go in like the 4th, 5th round.
Yeah, for sure. You were the first person I heard talk about the guy, and now I've heard other people bring up his name, and every time I'm like, oh, that's Kev's guy. So he's definitely, going to get drafted in the mid rounds. If he squeezes into day 3 or day 2, round 3, I think you'll be doing cartwheels, and I'll be there to see it.
Oh, yes, I will. I love some Simi. But is there anybody else and the phone wires before we move on tight ends before we wrap this up? I know like Tamori and Terry, he's somebody that definitely is not like, he was like pre pro days and all that stuff. Like he was somebody that was starting to like really gain some buzz. People were getting excited about. We kept hearing about all this athleticism that he was going to showcase at his pro day. And then he just kind of went and laid a big turd on his pro day, where it just was not nearly as exciting as what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm not really in on Terry. Like I said, speed's not hard to find in this draft. That's why I guess why I'm not, willing to spend on Tony either. I mean, there's guys like Terry and Atwell, and there's so much random speed that's going to be going on even day 3 of the NFL draft. Speed's not something I really want to reach on in this draft because there's so much of it available.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of guys that are kind of in similar situations where you got like Seth Williams and Tamori and Terry, and we're all just kind of like in that side of like that bucket where they're probably going to be 4th, 5th, 6th round picks. And
now Seth Williams is a little different for me in that group. That's a big body guy there that, if he was better at football, we'd be putting him in Terrace Marshall's category. He has the frame that could really, perform well if he could step it up, whether it's coaching or effort or what. He's a different body than the rest of the guys in this draft. So I'd be more interested in Williams than the Terry and Atwell speed, dart throws late.
Yeah, and I remember it wasn't that long ago. It was probably about a month ago that like Daniel Jeremiah was mocking Tutu Atwell to go in the 1st round, which the guy's 140 pounds. Like,
yeah, It's
Like,
nuts. We're hitting on Rondell Moore. I mean, that's a giant compared to Tutu Atwell.
I don't get it. And it still sounds like there's a possibility to go in the second round, which would blow my mind if a guy that's 140 pounds goes and this, but it's hard to deny though. The production was definitely there for him, what he was able to do in college, but I don't know. I can't imagine a 140-pound wide receiver.
Hey, Louisville, man. Chris Sims has Javian Hawkins running back 3, so,
Chris Sims is a moron. Like I can't tell if he's a moron or if he's trying to skip Bayless.
He's trolling, man. There's no way he actually thinks that. Come on.
Yeah, or he has Justin Fields going 32. Like, bro, there is not a scenario, and there's a 1%. I will never say never because anything's possible, I guess, but there's like a 1% chance that Justin Fields falls to 20. There's so many teams that, like, in the later rounds that would be doing backflips, like Chicago, who picks at 20, who needs a quarterback. I would, if I was Ryan Pace and I didn't have to trade up to give Justin Fields, he's sitting there at 20. There's no way they're passing on Justin Fields.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Pittsburgh desperately needs a quarterback because Big Ben is being held together by duct tape and baling wire, right? Like, they need a quarterback for him. So there's all these teams in the later rounds that Washington needs a quarterback because Ryan Fitzpatrick is a very short-term answer. Like, there's no way that Justin Fields is going that late. Anyways, Chris Sims is an idiot. But is there any other wide receiver?
That's something I'd like to see is Washington football team trade up for one of these quarterbacks.
Oh, I mean, just for fantasy purposes, I love Washington this year.
Oh, dude, I'm all about
their
it.
offense is going to be great with Scary Terry, with Curtis Samuel,
Samuel. Oh, so good.
Yes. So this Ryan Fitzpatrick is just fantasy goodness. He's got that DGAF attitude. So I'm excited about this offense this year. And if they could land a Justin Fields, move up and get him, I would be thrilled about that. But is there any other wide receivers you want to hit on, or you want to jump over to the tight ends?
Yeah, let's go ahead and head over to tight ends.
All right. Well, we don't have to wax too long on Kyle Pitts. He is the consistent number one tight end. I've said it once. I'll say it again. If Kyle Pitts is a wide receiver, he would be a top 5. He would be top 2 or 3 for me as a wide receiver, but he's a tight end. He is that good. I know I've seen some of the pushback on Kyle Pitts. People want to, maybe he's not going to be as good. Maybe we're overhyping him. Like, no, just let it happen. Kyle Pitts is the real deal, in my opinion. He has done everything. He checks every single box. He tested better athletically than I thought he was going to. I thought he was going to be like a 4.5, 4.6 guy. He tested better than that. So the guy is just an absolute freak of nature. I assume you're on the same page.
I'm on the same page, but it is possible for him to be the real deal and to be overhyped as well. I just did a startup this past week or two, and he went 14th overall in a super flex startup.
So let me ask you this though, and because I've seen some of the talk about that, and this is where my thoughts are with that. While I get it, and that's probably a little bit too high, but for him and for the tight end position that is so barren. You have Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, who both are 30-plus years old. I believe Darren Waller's, if he's not, he's getting ready to be 30 years old. And George Kittle, right? The rest is, we like Mark Andrews, but unless Lamar Jackson really starts to open up this offense and throws the ball more, there's a lot of other guys that I really like. Noah Fant, a bunch of other dudes that we could talk about. But there's really only like 2 guys that are elite, right? And so with Kyle Pitts and what I feel like is just a can't miss prospect. Like, I know a lot of people early round tight ends don't typically work out, but Kyle Pitts is that kind of unicorn for me. And so for me, I don't mind taking him that early. I don't mind taking him earlier than what you normally would because it's so hard to get a good tight end. You have those couple of guys, and then the rest of it is just such a big drop off that Kyle Pitts year one comes in and he does turn out to be because, like I said, if he was a wide receiver, he would be he would be going in the first round if he was a wide receiver, but he's a tight end. And we don't say that a lot about tight ends either.
I have no issue with you taking him as a top 5, 10 tight end or a top 12 wide receiver, but we're talking a super flex startup draft here. You're taking him over Joe Burrow. You're taking him over DeAndre Swift and Antonio Gibson. I mean, you're taking him over, 22-year-old quarterbacks and like all of last year's running backs except for Akers at that point. Like, that is insane.
Right,
That's
but
insane.
it's a positional scarcity thing. You know, it's there's so
You're
few.
not taking Travis Kelce right there, and he's
Well, Travis
done for
Kelce's
7 years in a row.
32 years
You're not taking
old.
Travis Kelce 3 years ago that early. Like you're not passing up a quarterback like Joe Burrow or a second-year running back.
That is too early. I'm not disagreeing with you that. I'm just talking about the overall, not necessarily where that happened in that draft. Like I would agree that that's too early for him. I think there's just other guys there that you could take, and that's probably overvaluing him. But I think I've just seen a lot of people that I guess that want to like. Typically, what we see is when there's a guy that's getting a lot of steam, whether it's in seasonal, whether it's like season long or this or whatever you're talking about, there's always people that have to try to push back on it and try to be like, well, you know, I don't agree. You guys are overhyping him. Like, I just don't think that. I think he has potential to be a Hall of Famer. Like, I think that's how good he is.
I think he's the most likely player in this draft class to be a Hall of Famer. But, you know, I just think it's crazy to rate him anywhere above tight end 3 before he plays a snap. You know, until we see him play, you know, we haven't seen it. I mean, we've seen Travis Kelce and George Kittle and even now Darren Waller perform at such a level points per game wise. I know Kittle's had some injuries, but until we see him come in here and put up some 20 PPG type performances, you know, I'm going to keep him behind those guys. I'm okay putting him ahead of Andrews and Hawkinson and Fant and those guys that we liked a bit. But, you know, the 3 that we've seen, you know, put together at least a month or two long stretch of doing 20 points per game plus, I just can't put him ahead of those guys at his position yet. And taking him over quarterbacks or last year's running backs class is just crazy to me. What I think is funny about this year is we have Trevor Lawrence, who's like a generational prospect that we have all been waiting for years. Trevor's from about an hour down the road from where I live. I actually went and saw him play in 9th grade because we knew he was that guy then. You know, we've known Trevor has been this guy for almost a decade at this point. And no one's even talking about him in our community because it's just such a given that he's won one. We're not even evaluating him. We're talking about all the other quarterbacks. Like, he's just set aside. Like, no one's talking about him. You know, no one's criticizing him. No one's praising him. Kyle Pitts is the guy that you would think is the 1-1. He's the FOMO. Everybody's got to have Kyle Pitts or they're going crazy. You know, it's just funny to me that, you know, Trevor's just been set aside and Kyle Pitts is kind of the guy on the throne this year, you know, just because of how, you know, much of a guarantee Trevor is. We don't talk about him at all. Kyle Pitts is the crown jewel this year.
Listen, we see elite quarterbacks every year. We are starved for tight ends. Okay. Every year. Like, I will not, like last year, me and Cody talked about tight ends and like, this is the year they're going to break out. We're going to get a really good tight end year this year. It did not happen at all. It blew up at our face. It was just another bad tight end year. So don't try to take the tight end from us. I think with Trevor Lawrence, I think much like you said, he's just kind of the consensus guy. There's no real reason to talk about him. And that you're right. The people really have it. It's kind of the same thing with Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's kind of been the same thing. Now that we know he's locked into the Jets, we know he's going there. There's not a whole lot of point in talking about it and really speculating about it.
So you're comfortable taking Pitts ahead of Fields or Lance in a super flex rookie draft?
Oh no, I didn't say that at all.
Okay.
I'm not saying I would do that. And I don't agree that I don't think he should be going 14th in a startup either. Like that's a bit too rich, you know?
Oh yeah. So like I said, that we've gotten long-winded on it, but to you know, I'm a fan of Pitts. If the Falcons get him tomorrow, I'm going to have a hard time being excited because we left an elite quarterback on the board, you know? And in this case, I like Pitts, but I'm not taking him in the high second round in a startup. So, you know, I like him, but I don't like him as much as everybody else, clearly. So,
yeah, I mean, he's 20, and I hope he goes to Carolina. That's the spot that I want to see him out. But I think that would be fantastic landing spot. But let's talk about the other tight ends, and we can wrap this thing up. You know, I think the biggest riser for me is Tommy Tremble, which it's hard for me to really move him up much higher because I already had him at 5 back in February. But like I think again, he's gonna be another guy that if he lands at the right spot because he's gonna be able to get on the field because he's a terrific blocker. Like he is aggressive, he gets in your face. Like he is a willing blocker. Like he is a definite two-way tight end. But he's really raw on the other aspect of it because Notre Dame never really used him outside of that. But you see the burst, the athleticism that he carries, and if he goes to the right spot, the team that uses him, Marcus Mosher, I listened to a podcast. It's been about a month and a half ago though. So he was saying that he reminded him had some George Kittle to his game, and I mean I think that's a little high because George Kittle obviously is one of the goats in the league right now among the tight ends. But I think he's a really interesting prospect. And again, somebody, in your rookie drafts, if you're tight end premium, take him in the 4th round if you're, late there, because I think that in the right spot, like he could definitely end up being a guy. He's probably going to take some time. He's not going to be a guy that's going to contribute year 1 or 2, but I think slowly, 3, 4, maybe even a second contract that could really take off, because that athleticism is definitely there.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy for me. There's no question that he's the riser. I mean, he most people didn't even know who he was a couple months ago, and now it looks like he's going to be the 3rd tight end drafted in the NFL. For me, it's really crazy because he doesn't have an analytical profile. He never broke out. He has like 400 total receiving yards in his career in college, and then he's apparently going to go ahead of Brevin Jordan, who has one of the best analytical profiles you'll ever see. I knew we would get to this, so I actually pulled up Brevin Jordan on Player Profiler. He has a 90th percentile college dominator and a 99th percentile breakout age, yet he's apparently terrible on film and not an athlete and all this stuff. And you got Tommy Tremble, who apparently looks like George Kittle on film, but he never did anything in college. He's got like 400 yards for his career total. Like it's the ultimate film versus analytics debate between Jordan and Tremble, because here with Jordan, you got a guy that, doesn't appear to be as athletic as you think he would, but the production profile is insane. And then you got a guy like Tremble who has no production whatsoever. He's literally never produced, but he looks awesome on film and we think he transitions well, so it's going to be interesting for me to see how those two play out, because looking at Brevin Jordan's analytical profile, it's almost impossible for him to fail, looking back at historical data, but most people don't like him this year. So something's got to give.
Yeah, I mean, I actually had Brevin Jordan at 2. When we first did this, we did our top 5 tight ends. I believe I had obviously Pitts, and then it was Jordan, and then it was Freiermuth, and I think I had Hunter Long and Tommy Tremble. I think was what I had at 5. But now I'm not moving Brevin Jordan below Tommy Tremble. I still think he deserves to be. He's not as athletic as I thought he was going to be. I will say that. I thought that he was going to be a guy that really was going to push for 4.4. He kind of looked like that guy. He did not test as well as he looked. Whenever you'd watch him on tape, but I still like Brevin Jordan. I think Brevin Jordan can be a fine tight end in this league. I think Pat Freiermuth is your ultimate kind of 2-way traditional tight end, the same way Hunter Long is. Like Hunter Long is not sexy. But it's like Hunter Long's best comparable on Player Profiler is actually Jason Witten. And you kind of see that whenever you watch Hunter Long, right? And he's not athletic. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism, but I think he's just a really good, like you watch him in space. Well, he's able to go up and get the ball out of the air. He kind of has that my ball mentality. And, and I think that he can be somebody that has a really long career. He's not somebody that's going to be super sexy. I don't think that he's going to give you 1,300 yard receiving seasons, but he's going to be a guy that gets you 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. And in fantasy football, and as a tight end, that's a tight end 1, baby. But it's just not sexy. And I think that to me is Hunter Long.
Yeah, I like Hunter Long too. I've got Hunter Long 4th. I've got Tremble 5th. I mean, it seems like Tremble could be better than Hunter Long, but like you said, Hunter Long's just really good at football. So it's hard for me to take a guy that I can't really watch film of him being good at football like Tremble. I just have to watch the intangible stuff and, profile is blocking and all the boring stuff you all film guys love. I can't really
a film guy, sir.
Okay.
I feel disrespected. You just said that to me.
I haven't known you long enough, Kevin. Yeah. But I watch film too, but I definitely, for me, it's hard to ignore Brevin Jordan's analytical profile and ignore the lack of one on Tommy Tremble and be like, oh yeah, I'm cool having Tremble ahead of Jordan. There's no way I can put Tremble ahead of Jordan because of what actually happened when they played football. Brevin Jordan was really good at playing football and Tommy Tremble was just a guy on the field, so that's what struggles. That's what, prevents me from moving.
The only thing I will say this is with tight ends and college football is teams aren't out here scheming to get the ball to their tight end. Like it's just not the way that the college game works. So on that, like I'm not as concerned about some of those things about his production and stuff like that. I think he has all the tools and all the traits to be a really good tight end at the next level. Does he get that opportunity? I don't know, but I think at the very least, with his blocking ability, we'll get him on the field, and that is step one for any tight end. And if he can kind of take that next step, I think it's going to take him a few years. The traditional tight end path that we typically see, where they take 3-4 years to really develop and really get opportunity. I think that's probably more likely with him. He's not going to be an immediate producer, but I can see a team falling in love with him with his athleticism and kind of everything else that he brings to the table, that he could find himself on the field sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. Last year, though, 19 catches, 218 yards, and no touchdowns. So that's just hard to get me excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of all those other things, of dominator rating, breakout age, it ain't there for Tyreek Hill. Okay, it's not. So definitely, I see the pushback and the hesitancy with them. I'm just curious to see where he's going to land and where he's going to end up. And does he get a higher draft capital than what we think?
Yeah. Despite me being skeptical, I do believe he's going to get the capital, and I'm intrigued. He's an athlete, but I know some people have moved him ahead of Jordan, and I just can't do that. Jordan's analytical profile is just too strong.
Oh, for sure. So, other than that, do you have any other positions or anything else you want to talk about?
I believe that's it. You guys just keep me in your prayers tomorrow. I'm a Falcons fan. We're picking fourth, and I have no idea what's going to happen. And even if what I think is going to happen, I'm not even sure I could be excited about it because of how I feel about what we believe in there. So it's going to be an interesting day of emotions as a fan tomorrow. But I know all of us are relieved to put some team names next to our rookies for fantasy purposes, and that's really what it's about. I'm most excited about Friday. That second and third round is the fantasy football day. We'll get a couple guys drafted tomorrow. But, the second and third rounds is where, that's the meat of our rookie drafts right there. So,
yeah, I am so excited to hear all of the speculation. It's funny, though, because I was thinking about this. Like, at one hand, I'm like, finally, I don't have to hear the rumors and the bullshit anymore and try us speculating where this guy's going to go. Is he going to go here? Is he going to go there? How is this happening? Why is this guy being drafted here? All this stuff is going to be over. We're going to have their landing spots. But within about a week, we're going to run out of stuff to talk about again because we're going to have nothing else, right? We have the schedule released, I guess, in mid-May. We can get excited about that. But other than that, we don't have anything else really. I guess we may get OTAs or something like that in June, a short mini camp, but we're not going to get a whole lot until we get to August, until training camp starts, right? So yeah. I guess we should enjoy this because all the news we're going to get from it, because in a couple of weeks, we're going to overanalyze wherever all these guys go, and that's all we're going to have to talk about. But that will be the start of the season-long season. The redraft season will officially be here. Dynasty, you guys can sit the fuck down because that's all you got, right?
I was about to say, you not being a Dynasty player just skipped the whole month of May. Most Dynasty rookie drafts are starting on May 3rd. So starting on May 3rd, we'll have a good 2 weeks of rookie slow drafting in the Dynasty world. And, it's going to be a good time. That comes before everything else we just talked about. So Dynasty rookie drafts are on the horizon.
Yeah, that's all you guys got. You guys got one more month and you're out. All right, one more month and you're done. Okay.
Yeah. Then attention turns to redraft, and even in Dynasty, then it comes to actually worrying about your lineup. So that's one thing I'll say. If you play Dynasty, don't worry about setting your lineup now in April. Accumulate assets. Worry about setting your lineup when redraft stuff comes out.
Well, no, all Dynasty guys care about is trading and acquiring picks. Okay, it's just all about the trades and roster baiting about their draft picks.
No. The Dynasty people need to listen to me and not Kev. If you're Kev, you're probably reaching for like Hunter Henry in the 6th round because the top 3 tight ends are left, and oh my God, who am I going to start at tight end?
No, you wouldn't have to worry about that because I don't play Dynasty. So
yeah,
DFS.
Now, DFS good stuff.
Oh, I love DFS. Yeah. I had a tough break against NASCAR last weekend, but I digress. So, like we said, we'll be going live tomorrow night, 7:00 Eastern, right? No, 8 o'clock Eastern, right? Yeah, that's when the NFL draft starts. Yep.
I'm not sure. I think I'm on day 2.
It's 7 Central. So 7 Central, we'll be going live, and then day 2, we'll be going live at 6 Central, 7 Eastern. We're going to be live streaming each of the the first 2 days of the draft. We got a ton of guests lined up. We got a ton of now. Tomorrow, I won't be on until a little bit later. I got obligations. I'm a coach of my son's baseball team. We got practice until 8 o'clock. I wasn't real happy about it, but I can't. I thought about being like, I had something come up. I can't be there. But people can easily just go check me out. I'm here on live, and they're gonna know I'm bullshitting them. So I will be on a little bit later, but I should be on for the full day 2. We're excited about it. Like I said, we got a ton of guests. Finally, we'll get landing spots. We'll be able to talk about all this stuff. I appreciate everybody checking out the show. Christian, I appreciate you jumping on with me, despite the damn technical difficulties that I had. It's Christmas Eve. Hope everybody's able to sleep tonight because tomorrow we finally get the landing spots we've all been looking for. You got anything else?
No, that's it. That's all I got.
Right. Well, once again, you can follow him on Twitter at Evil Empire FF. You can follow me on Twitter at FantasyWrath13. We will see you all tomorrow night. Have a good night. Peace.